What's going on, you guys? This is DerekJ Speaks, and today we are talking about AEW All In live from Wembley Stadium in London, England for the second year in a row. Where on this particular show, on this day, Bryan Danielson defeated Swerve Strickland in the main event, a damn good main event, to win the AEW World Championship. It was title versus career. Bryan Danielson's long, incredible 25-year career on the line against Swerve, and by hook and by crook, Bryan Danielson, in the end, made Swerve tap out to win the World Heavyweight Championship just 10 years after he won the WWE Championship at the end of WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. So, incredible moment to cap off what overall was an incredible show. Bryan and Swerve had an excellent match. Just the entire atmosphere surrounding this match made it so much fun to watch. Got me invested, got the people in the building invested, and of course had Bryan's family invested because his wife, his son, and daughter were all in the front row watching, going through a whole roller coaster of emotions, especially his daughter watching Bryan Danielson's bloody face somehow evade and survive the brutal attacks from Swerve to win in the end. It was a beautiful ending to a show that, top to bottom, was a very strong show. And as great as Swerve and Danielson's match was, it was not the best match of the entire night, as those honors, in my opinion, go to MJF and Will Ospreay, who put on an incredible match for the then American Championship, now once again rechristened as the International Championship, with Will Ospreay getting the win, finally, after all these months of refusing to hit the Tiger Driver 91. He finally plants MJF with that move after MJF had a ghost from his past rear their heads towards the end of this match, that being Daniel Garcia, the same Daniel Garcia who MJF embarrassed and left a bloody, broken mess over a month ago on Dynamite, left him for dead to go off and renegotiate his contract, of course. But Daniel Garcia is back, and he played a very pivotal role in distracting MJF long enough for Will Ospreay to put him down and regain the International Championship. Just an incredible match between these two. We saw these guys go at it for almost an hour. It was 59 minutes not that long ago on Dynamite, and that was an amazing match. This one, obviously not anywhere near as long, but it was still long in its own right. And once again, these two put on a great match. They have incredible chemistry together, and this match was very good, and in my mind was the best match of the night. Only coming second was the world title match, and third behind that, I would give those honors to the AEW Women's World Championship match between Timeless Toni Storm and Mariah May, who, heading into this show, in my opinion, had the best built-up story. It was the longest played-out story in AEW up to this point, and it's one of the best stories they've ever done with the women, and it paid off big time with these two having an incredible match. Mariah May plays her character perfectly. Toni Storm does the same, and they're pretty good wrestlers too, in case you didn't know. And so I thought they had a fantastic match on this show, and Mariah May walks away with the championship. The story, as it has been told up to this point, is now complete, and Mariah May has officially surpassed her once mentor and has won the Women's World Championship. Incredible match. Top three best matches on the show were the three matches I was looking forward to the most heading into this show, and in my mind were the three matches that this show was built around completely. But you did have a few other matches on this show. to varying degrees. Some good, some meh, some really good, but questionable finishes. We'll get into all that as we go through this entire show. So let's retrace our steps and start right at the very beginning with the 0 hour pre-show. I'm not going to get too deep into a lot of the stuff that happened on this show because we had a couple of big giant tag team matches. We had a 16-man tag team match at the very start, which I gotta be honest, I really didn't pay that much attention to. I do know that there was a point in that match where we had a face-off between Satnam Singh and Leo Rush, but that's all I can really tell you about that match. We'd also had a mixed tag team match on the pre-show where Willow Nightingale teamed up with Tomohiro Ishii to take on Chris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway. This was building to the obvious spot of the men getting tagged in and Ishii beating the brakes off of Stokely Hathaway, who did have a few hope spots. He had a few things that popped the crowd, but he had no hope, and he got planted by Ishii and gave the win to him and Willow. And now this match and this victory for Willow sets up her getting to choose the stipulation for her match with Chris Statlander at the next pay-per-view All Out, which, as of this recording, is next Saturday, because AEW once again has these pay-per-views close together. So at least there's a little bit of a break, but yes, so they're going to have a match on that show, and now with this victory, Willow Nightingale gets to pick the stipulation. We also had a 10-man tag team match on this show that involved the Von Erichs. Kevin Von Erich and his sons, Dustin Rhodes, was in there. That's about, once again, all the information I can really tell you. I do know that the babyfaces, that being in this case, the team with the Von Erichs, got the win. So, good on them. And the last big notable thing on the pre-show was we got an appearance by Saraya and her family, and of course Harley Cameron. Saraya was pissed for being left off the Wembley show, and she was interrupted by a returning Jamie Hayter, who has been gone for over a year now, and has been out of sight, not out of mind, because people have been asking for her for over a year, but there's been no word from her. There's been no updates regarding her injuries and anything like that. But everyone was hoping that she would make an appearance on this show, and she did. She came out and she cleared house. She beat up everyone who was out there at ringside. She almost got to take out Saraya too, but she did get to take out Saraya's mother. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, huge ovation for Jamie Hayter when she came out. The fans loved seeing her, and I am fully on board to seeing this woman eventually challenge for any of the championships, quite frankly, but mainly the women's world title. Get a feud with her and Mariah May somewhere down the line. I think that would be great. But on to the actual show. The show opened up with the London ladder match for the Trios Championship. We had, of course, the Patriarchy, Christian Cage, Killswitch, and Nick Gage defending their titles against the House of Black, the Bang Bang Gang, and the makeshift team of Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, and Pac, who clearly had to find new partners since his former Death Triangle mates, the Lucha Bros, are seemingly on their way out of the company into the other place. So, and there was something about seeing the entrances, because they showed the entrances on the pre-show. There was something about seeing that where I thought to myself, I think they're gonna win. And that's exactly what happened. The ladder match itself, to me, nothing overly special. These ladder matches are kind of getting a little redundant for me, especially these big multi-man ladder matches. There were 12 guys in this match. Obviously, there's going to be impressive stuff, and kudos to the guys going out there killing themselves in this match, but it's just nothing overly that stand out to me that they did in this match that I haven't seen in any of the other 8 ladder matches that have happened this year between AEW and WWE. But in the end, it was due to, I guess, some kind of miscommunication between Christian and Killswitch that led to Pac pulling down the championship to win it for himself and Claudio and Wheeler Yuta. So we have new trios champions, and the dissension between Christian and his right hand of destruction, Killswitch, played a big role at the end of another match later on this show. But before we get to that, we have a few other things to get through, which is the next matchup, which was the AEW Women's World Championship, Toni Storm and Mariah May. Like I mentioned, this crowd was great. Well, the crowd, yes, of course, was great. The crowd was great all night, but this match was great. And the fans were super into Toni Storm in particular. They chose their favorite between the two, and Toni was the obvious choice. Luther, who we haven't seen since Mariah May turned on Toni all those weeks ago. Luther returned on this show, and he was out there at ringside. He played a role in this match at one point when Mariah was trying to use the championship belt. Luther was on the outside. He pulled it out and he flipped her off, which I thought was a funny moment. Mariah May was an absolute menace throughout this match. She was beating down Toni Storm. She attacked Luther. She kissed Nigel McGuinness on his head. And her mother was in the front row, and she slapped her own mother in the face. So this woman was pure evil in this match, but it was very entertaining to see. And she and Toni had excellent in-ring chemistry, as anyone could have expected. And even 2 matches in, this was already my favorite match of the night, with a really good finish, as Toni was setting up to use that bloody shoe. Speaking of blood, Mariah May did bleed in this match. I figured there'd be some color in this match, and Mariah was the one to bleed. So Toni was threatening to use that shoe on Mariah May in this match, but she couldn't pull the trigger. She couldn't do it, and she was getting very emotional, and she ended up throwing the shoe aside. This led to Mariah rolling her up, almost getting the win, but only good for a 2 count. But then Mariah hit her in the back of the head with a knee, hit her in the face with a knee, and then hit Toni with her own finishing move, the Storm Zero, and got the win. So Mariah May is your new Women's World Champion. Excellent match. Where do they go from here? I could see there being a rematch at some point, but as you all know, Mina Shirakawa was shown in the crowd watching this match, and she had a look of concern, but it was all throughout the entire match anytime they cut to her. So we could see Mariah May versus Mina at some point in the future, maybe at All Out. We don't know. So great stuff here, and this story has been great. It'd be unfortunate if it just flat out came to an end here, because I'd love to see it continue. I'd love to see these two have another match, but if it ends here, this was one of the best told stories in all of AEW. Easily one of the best feuds of the entire year in any wrestling promotion, in my opinion. So great stuff here. Up next, we had the FTW Championship on the line. Chris Jericho defending his For the World title against Hook. Of course, Jericho came out with Fozzy. They were playing him out, and he was singing himself out. This match, Jericho had Big Bill and Brian Keith in his corner, so they were ganging up on Hook 3-on-1, but Hook was fighting them off to the best of his abilities. At one point, he used a cricket bat and cricket balls on Jericho, but nothing great. It was fine. It was fine for what it was, but it was nothing great. Big Bill, for whatever reason, was super over in England, so good for him. But the big grand finale here was Hook got Jericho locked in the red rum. Meanwhile, on the outside, Brian Keith got put in the Taz mission by Taz, who got up from the commentary booth and came over, locked Brian Keith in the Taz mission. It looked pretty weak, but the crowd was into it. And Jericho in the ring, he tapped out. And Hook is once again the FTW champion. Honestly, after Hook has fought for this belt 2 years in a row, At this point, I would just retire the thing and move Hook on to going after an actual real championship. And as for this stuff with him and Jericho and the Learning Tree stuff, hopefully it ends here. At least this feud, hopefully it ends here. As far as Jericho and the Learning Tree, he's going to continue that. Obviously, I hope he goes away for a little bit, but that is false hope because Jericho is never going away. But cool moment with Hook and Taz. We had a triple threat match for the AEW Tag Team titles up next. The Acclaimed, FTR, and the Young Bucks. The entire tag team division in this company has fallen greatly. What was once a big highlight of this company, their robust, active tag team division, has now descended into a weak point in this company. You still have talented teams, but they just don't do enough to highlight them. They don't do enough to really capitalize on their talents and their abilities, and they really don't do anything overly interesting to set up these pay-per-view matches with the tag team division. And here, this match came about in a very weak way, and I didn't doubt that the match wouldn't be good because it ended up being good, but there was just nothing exciting about it to me. But it was a good match. If you saw it on TV, it would be just as good. Here on this show, it was very good. It was a nice, serviceable mid-card match, and you had a lot of people super over here with the crowd, but to me, the finish was never in doubt, and that was the Young Bucks retaining their titles. They have rarely defended those titles, but I didn't see this as the end of their reign, and it was not. They hit the EVP trigger on Dax, and they got the win. After the match, they were confronted by the grizzled young veterans, that being Zach Gibson and James Drake, who got in the ring, went face-to-face with the Bucks. I didn't think this was going to turn into anything because you still saw FTR out there in the ring. So, of course, the Young Bucks leave. The grizzled young vets attack FTR. So that'll be a nice series of matches to take place on Collision over the next 2 months. And maybe they'll work their way up to the Bucks at some point. But I don't know. We'll see. Next up, we had the Casino Gauntlet match. This has become a new favorite for a lot of people. We've had, 3 of them now? I think this was the third one. And they have all been pretty fun. And this one was no exception. This was very fun. And of course, the surprises are what made it. We started things off with Orange Cassidy and Kazuchika Okada, which was really cool. Then out next was Nigel McGuinness, who came out, fought in his home country, got a huge ovation. Not super quick out there, but the man hasn't wrestled in over 10 years, maybe close to 15. So, but he looked great. He looked in great shape. And for the few things that he did do, he looked just like old school Nigel McGuinness. So I thought it was great. We had Kyle O'Reilly come out. We had an appearance by G1 Climax winner, Zack Sabre Jr. And we even had a little face-off between him and Nigel McGuinness at one point, which got a huge ovation from the London crowd. That was really cool to see. Had Roderick Strong, Mark Briscoe, Hangman Adam Page. He came out and, no pun intended, went on a rampage, just taking out everyone in sight. I thought this was his match to lose. Clearly, it was because he lost it. Jeff Jarrett came out, and him and Hangman, they had some interaction. At one point, Jeff Jarrett clocked Hangman over the head with a guitar. So that was a nice spot there. Little did I know that is what took Hangman out of the match. But before that, while Hangman was still in the ring, he was there to witness the debut, the AEW debut of Ricochet. It has been a long-standing, horribly kept secret that Ricochet, who wrapped up his work in WWE a few months ago, was going to leave and was going to be signed by AEW. A lot of people were anticipating it, and then the news leaked this week, of course, that he had been signed and he was on a flight to London, and here he was in this match, and like you could expect, he was great. He was a human highlight reel out there, and he had a few great spots to showcase his abilities, so good on Ricochet. And of course, Tony Khan put up the All Elite graphic on Twitter/X, so you know it's official when he does that. Then out came Christian Cage, who was limping out there. He immediately got taken out by a dive from Ricochet. Not long after that, Luchasaurus came out. The same Luchasaurus who was going by the name Killswitch earlier in the night. He came out under the Luchasaurus name here. And once he came out, I knew what the finish was, and I didn't like it. So Luchasaurus comes out. He teases that he's going to lay out Christian Cage with a chokeslam. To me, obviously, he was not. And he didn't. He laid out Kyle O'Reilly instead. And then he once again was threatening like he was going to go after Christian again. But instead, he just pulled Christian on top of Kyle O'Reilly. The ref counted to 3, and Christian Cage wins this match. And he has a guaranteed world title match in his back pocket now. I could have done without the tease with Luchasaurus. Like, that just made it very obvious that Christian Cage was going to win. Honestly, Christian coming out in general made it obvious to me that he was going to win, which I don't hate. I don't hate Christian. I love Christian. Dude is incredible. He is doing the best career work of his entire life right now. He is on an unbelievable run. And the thought of Christian versus Bryan Danielson for the World Championship at some point in the near future won't be too bad. People were speculating that, oh, what if he's going to come out at the end of the show and treat it like Money in the Bank, he's going to cash in. People were thinking that, and it's not that hard to believe because he did exactly that several months ago. And that was one of the other big reasons why I wasn't a big fan of this match, is because we've seen Christian basically do something similar to this. We've seen this kind of thing with Christian and Luchasaurus, Killswitch, whatever you want to call him, back in December at World's End. It was a TNT Championship match between Christian and Adam Copeland. Copeland won, and then after the match, Luchasaurus came out. He laid out Adam Copeland. He had a guaranteed shot at the TNT Championship with him. He won that match in some kind of gauntlet match of his own earlier in the night, and instead of using it for himself, he gave it over to Christian, who then used it and immediately beat Copeland for the title. There was mixed opinions on that then, but this is basically the exact same thing here. Like, either pull the trigger on Luchasaurus breaking away from Christian or don't. At this point, I don't really care. The fans were ready for it. The fans were cheering for Luchasaurus the entire time here, but this finish, the match was fun. It was super fun. It was great seeing all these different people interact with each other. This is the kind of thing you want to see in matches like this, similar to the Rumble and all that kind of stuff. It was fun. But the ending, I didn't like it all that much. But hopefully Christian, which is also weird that Christian is once again going after the world title. He was Swerve's first pay-per-view title defense at Double or Nothing. It's very shocking that he's once again getting a championship match. I don't expect him to win the title. Again, love Christian, doing some of the best work of his career, but with Danielson around and you got guys like Hangman and Swerve and all these other people around, Christian as the world champion just doesn't sound like it's in the cards. But it would give Danielson someone to beat. He served that very same purpose for Swerve. That was a first name for him to beat. It could be someone for Danielson to beat maybe in 2 weeks at All Out. So we'll see. Up next was Pure Greatness, otherwise known as the American Championship match between MJF and Will Ospreay. This was fantastic. There's very little words that I can say to truly describe how great of a match these two had on this show. It was great. At one point, MJF was mocking Will Ospreay on the outside, saying, anyone can flip. You're not special. Anyone can do a flip. And so he attempted to do a flip. He hit a springboard, was going for a moonsault on the outside, but Ospreay moved out of the way. MJF landed on his feet, and then he ran right into a Spanish fly on the floor from Ospreay, which looked brutal. And back in the ring, MJF was hung up on the ropes, and Ospreay went up top and hit a shooting star right onto MJF, which was great. At one point, Ospreay was going for the Stormbreaker, but then that got countered into a crossroads from MJF, which was on good for a 2 count. Ospreay was going for a single leg crab, but that got countered into a sick looking pile driver from MJF. Again, only good for a 2 count. Then later on the outside, on the apron, MJF hit a Panama Sunrise on Will Ospreay and planted him and sent him to the outside, where he laid on the ground as the ref began to count. And Ospreay, when I say by the skin of his teeth he made it in before that count of 10, he just barely made it back in. 9.9999 he made it back in. But nevertheless, he did beat the count back in. So as Ospreay was getting back into things here, MJF moved out of the way, and Ospreay managed to wipe out a cameraman on the outside with a hidden blade. So as the referee is looking out and trying to get someone to go over and check on this cameraman, MJF is getting the championship belt, but then Ospreay goes for the hidden blade. He gets knocked out with the belt. MJF goes for the cover, only good for a 2 count. Then he gets Ospreay up, hits him with a brain buster, once again, only good for a 2 count. A little bit later on, the referee actually did get knocked out for real, and he was out. And so MJF was teasing that he was going to hit Ospreay with the Tiger Driver 91, the same move that Ospreay refuses to hit since almost paralyzing Bryan Danielson a few months ago. That's the story they've been telling. But Ospreay wiggled out of it. He teased hitting the Tiger Driver himself, but then MJF laid him out with a low blow. And so MJF, in a spot that I'm sure was supposed to go to his Dynamite Diamond ring, which he posted on X that it was stolen from him. I thought this was going to be a storyline thing, and they were going to reveal that someone actually stole it and they were going to use it against him. That didn't appear to be the case on this show here. So he instead taped up his fist, had some kind of brass knucks, something like that. So he was teasing that he was going to KO Will Ospreay here. But then he got stopped by a masked man on the apron who turned out to be Daniel Garcia. Now, we've heard a little bit of behind the scenes rumors of Daniel Garcia and his contract. He was yet to sign a new one, and the idea of him batting around, potentially leaving, going to WWE, going to NXT, all that stuff. Clearly he made his choice. And on this show here, he cost MJF this match. You could essentially credit Daniel Garcia for being the reason that MJF lost. Because once MJF, who looked like he saw a ghost when he saw Daniel Garcia, who himself got a huge pop from the crowd, he had his back turned, did MJF, and once he turned around, Ospreay caught him with a hidden blade. And then at that point, the anticipation started to build up. They were really milking this moment here, but he got the arms hooked, and he got him up, and Ospreay plants MJF with the Tiger Driver 91, and he gets the 1-2-3, and he wins the American Championship, but he tosses it aside. He refuses to even touch the thing, and out comes Christopher Daniels, who has the original International Championship restored and redelivered back to Ospreay. Like I said, no words can do it justice. This match was unbelievable. This was an incredible match between these two. Just as good, if not a smidge better than their original match, which I know was longer, but this one, the emotion and the intensity of it was just so great. It's hard to really determine which one was greater. At the end of the year, when I do my match of the year list, I'm sure they'll be lockstep, arm in arm with each other, one spot ahead of the other. But great stuff between these two. I can't see there being a third match. Maybe there will be. But I'm thinking that come All Out, we're getting MJF versus Daniel Garcia on that show. I know he won't be facing Will Ospreay because they already announced that Pac, who won the right to challenge for the International Championship, he will be getting the next shot, and his shot will be at All Out. He was going to be facing whoever the champion here was, and so, which also helped me understand that Pac was probably going to win earlier in the night because he was going to get his big Wembley moment. But him winning earlier means, in my opinion, he will be losing to Will Ospreay at All Out. But I suspect that will be a very, very good match. And like I said, for Daniel Garcia and MJF, the story's right there for the taking. I suspect they'll have a singles match on that show as well. Up next was the TBS Championship match between Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker. It was fine. The build-up to this match peaked the first time the two went face-to-face. They had a great back-and-forth promo exchange. Since then, not a whole lot of meat on the bones. And of course, Britt Baker, real life, got suspended. There was that whole thing with her and MJF, that whole story that came out. I'm sure her being off of TV didn't help things, but the build-up to this match wasn't exactly exciting. But anticipating that the match would be very good, it was not very good. It was just okay. Psychology-wise, it made sense with Mercedes working over the back and everything, but nothing grand about it. On a show built up like this, like All In, you'd expect a little more from two of the bigger stars on this show, and it was just kind of there. Although the best part of the entire match, and the one thing that the fans were super into, was an Eddie Guerrero spot where Britt tossed one of Mercedes' championship belts over at Camille, who of course was at ringside. At this point, she got up on the apron. She tossed one of the championship belts to her, and then she laid down, and of course the referee turned around, saw that, and kicked her out. So that was funny. That was another thing about this match, because that was one of the rare times that the fans really got into this match, because they were kind of quiet for it, which is understandable coming after what MJF and Ospreay just did. But yeah, they never really got the fans really into this match other than that one main spot. And then the finish was also nothing extremely dramatic. I mean, Mercedes, she countered out of the lockjaw and she hit her Monet Maker and got the win. So she's still champion. Not necessarily a clean finish, but about as clean as you can get. Camille didn't play a factor, a major role in the finish of this match. So Mercedes technically won by herself. So there you go. And I don't see there being a rematch here. I think this is one and done. I don't really have much interest in seeing this continue, to be honest with you. So there you go. Speaking of one and done, that also applies to the TNT Championship match between Jack Perry and Darby Allin, a coffin match. This wasn't exactly a burial, well, I guess technically with the coffin stipulation, but it wasn't like Jack Perry squashed Darby Allin, but this was a very dominant victory for him. Because Darby, who was a madman, dude came out with thumbtacks taped to his face, but this was a very dominant win for Jack Perry. Darby did have some offense early on, but it got to a certain point where Jack Perry was just beating the crap out of Darby Allin. At one point, one of the biggest pops of the entire night happened in this match when Jack Perry pulled out a bag and he poured out the contents of this bag in the ring, and it was broken shards of glass. And that got a huge ovation from this crowd. We had some loud "fuck CM Punk" chants going. It was really cool. and Jack Perry was soaking it in. It was great. But poor Darby. This man, he went for a dive to the outside, and the coffin was standing upright. Jack Perry was pressed against it. As Darby goes for this dive, Jack Perry moves and he crashes into the coffin. And then later on, Jack duct tapes Darby's hands together. And then he's beating him down, gets him on the rampway, takes off his belt, and then ties up Darby's feet. And then he brings him over to the top of the stage, and he launches him off the stage where he crashed through a table. Jack Perry came out with a body bag, and he dragged the bag over there, puts Darby in it, and then puts him in the casket. Right before he can close it, Darby peeks his head out one more time, but then Jack Perry lays him out with a running knee, and then he closes the lid and retains the TNT Championship. I figured Jack Perry would win, but I just wasn't expecting this win to be as dominant as it was. But it is all in the effort to putting this guy over. So, good on them. After the match, the Young Bucks came out with gasoline, and they threatened to light this casket with Darby Allin inside of it on fire. But before they could do so, the lights went out. Slayer, Seek and Destroy played, and out came Sting, the same man who retired early this year. He came out on this show, baseball bat in hand, and cleared out all the heels, laid out both Bucks with a double scorpion drop, and he freed Darby Allin out of the casket and the body bag. So it was cool to see Sting. This was a great moment here on this show. Hey, just a one-off appearance from him here, no problem with me. And now we come to the main event, the last match, World Championship. Swerve Strickland defending against Bryan Danielson. Everything about this just felt like a main event should feel on a big show like this. Danielson coming out, final countdown playing probably in front of the biggest crowd it's ever been played in front of for Danielson. 50,000 people at Wembley Stadium. Are you kidding me? His wife Bree and his son Buddy and his daughter Birdie were right there at ringside, soaking it all in. Out comes Swerve, who had a great entrance in his own right. I guess it was the guys who performed his theme song. They were rapping him out. Loud Whose House, Swerve's House chants all throughout the building. But that was as much love as Swerve got because he was a complete heel throughout this match. He never really turned babyface at any point. It's just that the fans started to cheer for him more. But he was the complete antagonist, bad guy, villain in this match against Bryan Danielson, beating him down, even beating him down in front of his own family. At one point, Danielson, who by this point was bloodied up, Swerve was stomping him right in the face, right outside in front of Bryan's wife and kids, and even went over and was yelling at his daughter. This man is a menace. This man is evil. I love it. It was great. We had a lot of crazy near falls in this match. At one point, Swerve laid out Danielson with several house call kicks, and then he hits him. I think it was about 3. He hit him with one, hit him with a second one, and then he was building up that third one. He connects with it, and he takes down Danielson, goes for the cover, but it's only good for a 2 count. And then as Swerve is starting to kick Danielson some more, Danielson is looking over at his family. He's telling them that he loves them, and that's fueling him up because he's now eating these kicks from Swerve, and he then rears back, slaps him right in the face, gives him a few slaps, gives him a few kicks, takes down Swerve, and he's setting up, and he hits Swerve with the Busaiku knee. Unfortunately for Bryan, that Busaiku knee did not work on Swerve. It just backed him up into the corner. He stood upright, literally brushed it off, and then delivered another house call kick, and then hit him with big pressure and laid him out, went for the cover, and it was only good for a 2 count. That was a great near fall. I was convinced that it was over at that point. Even though I had an inkling that Danielson was going to win this match, they got me there. I thought that was a great near fall, probably the best near fall of the match. So as Swerve is taunting Bryan, doing the yes stuff, we get some commotion at ringside. And these ring crew guys, like cameramen, whatever, are getting tossed around and beat up. And it's revealed that it's Hangman Page who is beating the brakes off of these guys. And then he is yelling at Prince Nana. He knocks him down. He's yelling up at Swerve in the ring. A bunch of security guys swarm him and escort him out and drag him out of there. But this was enough to slightly distract Swerve long enough for him to turn around into another Busaiku knee from Bryan. Got the cover, but only good for a 2 count. I lied. I think this was actually the best near fall of the match because this was great too. So Hangman, while not a direct cause for Swerve's demise in this match, you could benefit, you could lean towards the idea that he had some impact on the finish of this match. So Bryan hits Swerve with another knee, another Busaiku knee, and then he hits him with another Busaiku knee right to the back of his head. And then he locks in the label lock. Swerve, he's breaking out of it. He's pulling Bryan's fingers off of him. And then Bryan takes Swerve's fingers and he snaps them. And then he reapplies the hold, this time now in the regal stretch. And Swerve has no choice but to tap out, thus giving Bryan Danielson the win and his first ever AEW World Championship. I was a little iffy about Swerve tapping out. I was okay with him losing, but I wasn't completely on board with the idea of him tapping out. But I will say, I thought commentary was really good here. Good all night, but on here, in this match, very good. JR was out there. He did a great job. I thought they did a great job of really pushing the narrative of how big of a deal it was that Swerve tapped out. Saying like he has never tapped out since arriving in AEW. This is the first time it has ever happened. So them really hyping it up made it feel like a bigger deal that it happened because this is something that has never happened, and I thought that was very effective there. But Bryan is champion. Out came Claudio and Wheeler Yuta. Pac came out there, who I guess is now a new unofficial member of the BCC. This moment was so great that it even got Pac to crack a small little smile, which I don't think the camera picked up on it, but I saw a few little screenshots on Twitter, and people got a shot of Pac having a little smirk at the sight of this because Bryan was in the ring, Bree was in there, his kids were in there, they were all celebrating. It was a beautiful moment and a beautiful ending to a damn good match. This was an excellent match. The gamut of emotions that it had you running on here, this is the kind of main event that you want in pro wrestling. I figured out, I think I've said this before about Swerve. I think I said it last month with the Swerve, or not last month, but the month before, with the Swerve Ospreay main event too. There's something about it, man. It's stuff like this that really makes pro wrestling fun to watch. Even seeing Bryan Danielson, who by no means did he need to win the world championship, but it was great to see. And Tony Khan, man, he loves doing right by these legends. We saw that earlier in the year. He had Sting retire as a champion in the main event of Revolution. And here now, Bryan Danielson, who clearly is never going to retire. He will, of course, pull back on his schedule, and I'm sure he will hold to his word that this will be his last full-time year, and going forward, he will have big matches here and there. But on this particular night, him winning the championship was the right move. It's what this crowd wanted. It's what a lot of people wanted, and it was the right way to close out what overall, top to bottom, was a damn good show. Even better than All In last year, in my opinion, which was also a very good show. But this one, just a little bit stronger and had several more matches that will be far more memorable than that of last year. Last year was just about the scale of the event. This one definitely felt more focused on a lot of big moments and great matches, and I really enjoyed that. So, kudos to them. As for Swerve, I suspect he'll be champion again. He had a damn good run. Some people will argue against that. I strongly disagree. I thought he had a great run as champion, and he carried himself well. He was presented very well, and I surely hope that he will get it back again in the future. But till then, he clearly has some unfinished business with Hangman Page. So I suspect that they will be having a match very soon. And like I said, for Bryan, he has a match with Darby Allin locked up for Grand Slam in September. But before then, I could see them doing Bryan and Christian at All Out. That wouldn't be a terrible idea. It'd be a good match. And Swerve and Hangman, who that was also reportedly teased and rumored around online that match will be happening at All Out. I could see that happening as well. So, good stuff here. And I look forward to seeing what the outcomes and the aftermath will be on TV this and many upcoming weeks. But as for me, that is enough droning on about this show. I could go on and on about how much I loved a lot of the matches on this show, but that is enough for now. And if you like what you heard, like what you saw, go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, comment down below your thoughts on the show, and as always, follow me on Twitter/X at DerekJ Speaks. Till next time, which will be next week, since WWE Bash in Berlin is next Saturday, and then immediately the week after that is AEW All Out. So I will try to be here to cover all of those shows as well. So till next time, take care.